So I'm just hitting the record button, going to share what is coming out of my mind in the moment. And it's in the context of just my weekly life, my weekly practice, my weekly experience. I'm not going to go into any of that. There's a lot of intersecting thoughts. There's a lot of intersecting awareness, I suppose. I have a friend who's in great pain, and she's experiencing the kind of pain that I know comes from a place of powerlessness and a place of betrayal, perceived powerlessness and a place of betrayal. And I think most of us are familiar with having experienced something like that. Many of us are. Many people are fortunate to not experience those things. Some people are the ones that perpetrate those sorts of things, and so they don't know what it feels like because they create those feelings in other people with their complete and total lack of care or respect or value in other people's points of view. Something I think about a lot. I pay attention to literally every day because I work with people every day who have been hurt and harmed and betrayed and punished and abused and denied and stolen from. I work with a lot of people like this, and I've also had my own experiences in my own life, and many of you have experiences in your life. The obvious word to throw out there is narcissism. However, in a highly narcissistic culture where we'd rather deflect than reflect, we tend to completely and totally misuse and abuse and overuse, and that word has just lost its real value. It's sort of clinical value, or its historical value. The value of understanding, here's the deal. The value of understanding that there is a type of person, and of course it exists on a continuum because we all have features of narcissism. We all live in a culture that is progressively more truly narcissistic. However, many, if not most people, do have the ability to reflect, to simply say, hey, I experience pain. If I experience pain, I bet you can experience pain. I bet the cat can experience pain. So if I know that I experience pain, I got this from Robert Sapolsky. If I know that I experience pain, well, then I can look at you and think you experience pain, and maybe I can have some empathy for you. Maybe I can become progressively aware rather than being an adolescent acting out or a child acting out and defending. Maybe I can be progressively aware that my choices and my behaviors actually have an impact on the people around me. That if I choose to steal from someone, they are going to feel betrayed and hurt and harmed and deeply saddened by that. Their trust is going to be undermined. If I deny someone's reality, if I continually hurt someone through my behavior, and I deny their reality, I deny their emotions, I deny their perspective, because I can't allow their emotions to make me feel that I'm somehow responsible for my behavior. That's what narcissistic parents do to their children. It's what narcissistic spouses do to their spouses. It's what narcissistic people really actually do, is behave in a way that is intended to force people around them to go into agreement with their perspective of how the world should work. And they have no care or value in how that behavior actually affects the people around them, In fact, they want the people around them to love them for their behavior. They want the people around them to validate them for their behavior. They want the people around them to go into approval in agreement with their behavior, because it justifies their ego. It justifies the fortress of an ego that they've created, that to them is spotless and clean and perfect and wonderful and righteous and correct. And if only the world would behave this way, everything would be okay, damn it. And I know I'm weaving some thoughts, and I'm kind of going in and out of some streams of thought here, but it all comes together, and I'm not doing anything other than speaking in the moment about what's on my heart. So in the extreme, I guess what I was saying is most people have empathy, quite simply. Many, if not most people, have the ability to empathize. Many, if not most people, have the ability to recognize that their choices and their behavior, that the way they behave has an impact on the people around them in a very objective, simple way. That's the only way society actually works, is that most people are willing to have some ethics, to have some rules, to recognize what guides their behavior, to have some values, to have some love, to have some religion, to have some sense of my behavior has an impact on the people around me. And if I feel pain, then I know they can feel pain. And I can recognize that the direct impact of my behavior could also become the direct impact of everyone's behavior if they behave this way. So empathy goes a long way. Now it's interesting that we allow sadistic narcissists to take power. We give them power because we've become so afraid. We've become so injured by masculinity as humanity, what people tend to call the patriarchy, that we've actually like outlawed and diminished really healthy masculinity in both men and women. So we no longer know how to set healthy boundaries for ourselves. And when we try to set boundaries for ourselves, we're actually punished for it. I can tell you as a man, and I'm not even going to get into the color of my skin right now, or any sort of, labels other than as I'm living in this body, okay? I identify as a man. And as a man, what I've learned is I need to be incredibly calm. I need to be incredibly thoughtful, as articulate as I can be, as patient as I can be with my words and my actions, even when I am being hurt or harmed or assaulted, particularly if I'm being passive-aggressively assaulted. I have to be very careful with how loudly I say ouch. I have to be very careful with how loudly I say please stop hurting me. I have to be very careful with how I set boundaries for myself, because if I set boundaries too firmly, too strongly, too loudly, it'll be interpreted as toxic masculinity, and it'll be completely diminished and ignored. The problem with that is that's what we do on a societal and a systemic level. We have, men and women both, everyone, has lost the ability as a general collective to enforce boundaries for ourselves in a healthy, reasonable way. And we have absolutely ceded our freedom and our power and our control to a system of sadistic narcissists who are on the extreme of this spectrum. And they are the ones who are willing to use you and abuse you in order to force you to go into agreement with their perspective of how the world should work. Not only that, they're going to manipulate all the laws. They're going to manipulate all the ideas. They're going to manipulate your perspective so that you believe that some other is out there to get you. And if only that other was controlled somehow or diminished somehow or gotten rid of somehow, that you would somehow be safer. That is how a sadistic narcissist or a psychopath or a megalomaniac, any of those individuals, the core feature is they are willing to completely and totally lack care or awareness for how their actions, how their policies, how their laws, how their behaviors affect you, affect your children, affect your neighbor, affect the collective. We have ceded power to this type of person. Of course, there's a lot of variability in there. I'm definitely saying that people who we would perhaps call sadistically narcissistic, meaning they kind of get off on this shit and they feed off of our pain and they feed off of the ability to manipulate us so that we have to consume off of them, and they're consuming off of our energy. So they use our generational trauma as a source of supply and power. And it works really, really well, and we're all falling right into it. Because we are so out of balance in our yin and our yang. We're so out of balance in our masculinity and our femininity. The masculine and the feminine have been at war in the home for centuries, especially the past few decades. It's just devastating. And there's a silver lining to this, meaning perhaps the masculine and the feminine need to get into a bit of a spat for a few decades in order to disrupt the horrible inequality that has existed in the world for so long. You know, there's going to be a backlash. When you rape and pillage for long enough, there's going to be a backlash. So because we are so out of balance, because we are at war in our homes, and quite simply, mommies and daddies are fighting across this country and demonstrating that for children, and it's become absolutely perfectly normal for mommy or daddy to just say, I'm tired of this, I'm leaving, I'm going to go start a new relationship while I'm still married to you, I'm going to start a whole new life on your dime and your time while I'm still married to you, and I'm just going to go do whatever I want, and then I'm going to expect you to compensate me for it. And actually the law supports that, because we've had a total lack and complete lack of awareness and value in healthy masculinity. We call healthy masculinity toxic masculinity. That causes an equal and opposite backlash, where the masculine in the culture feels deeply hurt by the feminine, and the feminine deeply hurt by the masculine, and it's played out in our homes, and that is used to deny, to manipulate, to separate, and divide us. And those who seek power and dominion, what I tend to call the sadistic narcissists among us, the outliers among us, who absolutely, totally, and completely do not care about the well-being of your children. They do not care about your well-being. They do not care about you at all, your rights, except for what you can supply them. And trust me, they are very aware of what they do, and they are very okay with what they do, and they have all sorts of ways of justifying it, because they have a rock-solid fortress of an ego that is so shiny and perfect and pure that they've convinced themselves that their behaviors are actually not only justified, but sanctimonious and righteous. And we have absolutely lost the ability to set healthy boundaries for ourselves. And we have lost the ability to set healthy boundaries for ourselves as a collective, as a nation. Maybe we never had it, honestly. We're in a moment where we are growing. We are growing. We have the ability to learn how to heal. There's so many resources now available. There's so much knowledge available just all over the place, where we can actually learn to heal our injured masculinity and our injured femininity. Some people have been hurt and harmed by toxic feminine energy, and they've compensated into the masculine. Some people have been hurt and harmed by toxic feminine or toxic masculinity, and they have regressed deeply into the feminine. And those two sides are at war with one another, because those two sides are used and abused and manipulated. Both sides are punished constantly for acting out their pain. It's unbelievable. Certain sectors of society are supported and controlled by this toxic masculine side, the injured masculine. We have to remember, just so we're really clear, almost all of it comes from injury on the right and the left, on the masculine and the feminine, almost on the yin and the yang. Almost all of it comes from a place of injury and separation and division within the self, denial within the self, pain within the self, generational trauma within the self. And that is magnified and projected into our relationships. And that is absolutely, deliberately, consciously used to divide and separate and manipulate us. I know I'm kind of going in circles, but this is such an important topic to me. It's a thing that I observe every day to come back to the ground in my clients. I notice that almost everyone I work with that has what we would actually call PTSD, everyone I work with that has severe anxiety or depression or any of these symptoms that are just profound sensations of the body trying to protect itself from experiencing its own pain, its own emotion, its own trauma, its own memory. The body is acting out in a way that it learned to act out to protect itself. It adapted to a hostile environment. All of these individuals have been hurt and harmed across the board by people who lacked empathy, by people who lacked the basic awareness of that, the fact that their behavior hurts others, that their behavior hurts their little children, that their narcissistic, self-centered, complete lack of empathy behavior hurts and harms their children. And when their children say, ouch, when their children act it out, when their children say, please, mommy, hold me, please, daddy, hold me, they get shut down and denied and belittled for having emotions. They get shut down and denied and punished for acting out their pain. And what do little boys do? Or what do people that dive into masculinity do? They get angry, they get loud, they get mean, they get violent, and then they're punished for it even more. And we fill our prisons with those hurt little boys that turn into hurt men and hurt women. And on the other side, what happens? People get hurt by their narcissistic abusers, and what do? They regress inward, they pull inward, they totally avoid any conflict. They totally are so overwhelmed by conflict that they have to point the finger culturally at the masculine other side and say, all of you are toxic, all of it is bad, it's all wrong. And no amount of strength is okay. We all need to be exactly equal and exactly the same. And if we aren't, then we're going to force you to be equal and the same. And we just all know what that is if we're reading our history books and our philosophy. And if you just look at it as a basic expression of an extreme coping mechanism within the self that has taken an extreme yin or an extreme yang, an extreme masculine and extreme feminine, it's always going to be out of balance. It's never going to work. Never has worked, never will work. Simplifying and bringing these thoughts to some sort of center. It's a trap to start calling everyone narcissists because we are so profoundly influenced by the people that we have allowed into power in all sorts of positions that I believe we've almost been brainwashed into believing it's normal and okay to just be a profoundly self-centered person that absolutely doesn't consider the impact of your behavior of the people around you. It's unbelievable how much we've normalized this. But we're redeemable in the fact that most people do have the ability to actually recognize, ouch, my behavior hurt you. I'm really sorry my behavior hurt you. I'm not going to do that again. What I do with my kids, if I raise my voice too much, if I act out in anger, if I have a moment of impatience, which I do, where I just like, and I lose it, as quickly as I'm consciously capable of, I go to them and say, hey, I want you to know the way I reacted to that was not okay. I take responsibility for it. I'm really sorry. And I will actually work on it, and I will follow through with working on it. I'm not just going to say it to you and then I'm going to do it over and over again, abuse you over and over again, and then keep denying it. That is abuse. That's how I define abuse. A total lack of the ability or the willingness to take responsibility for how our behavior affects others. I'm going to go back to my friend because I know this started from a genuine place of empathy, of watching someone else that I respect, that I care for, who is in pain. And who is in pain because she has been targeted, because she's a highly empathic, open-hearted, open-minded person. She was naturally targeted by a predator. The reason I paused and I'm reflecting and I'm observing is really because the reason I said that we need to be so thoughtful about the kind of language we use to define this kind of behavior is because as a culture, it's critical for us to learn to truly identify what true extreme sadistic narcissism looks like. And on the personal level, it looks like this. It looks like someone convincing an empathic, loving person that they love them, convincing them that they've turned over a new leaf, convincing them that they've learned from their mistakes and they're going to try harder, and getting them to a place where they open their heart and they open their body, and then they open their bank account, and then that person reveals their true intentions, which was just to feed off of this empathic, loving creature. And to totally and completely deny responsibility or culpability. In fact, what they do, I haven't said the word gaslighting, but we should define gaslighting better, because what they do is they try to convince you that it was really your fault that this happened in the first place. And then society will try to convince you of that as well, because we've become so profoundly narcissistic as a society, because we are primarily led by, we are governed by a system of sadistic narcissism. So I'm feeling for my friend, because I know that like what I've kind of come to as an artist and observing other artists is sometimes artists come across as like, hey, look at me, and I'm going to record myself and talk to myself and assume you actually want to see me and hear me. Really what I know is I'm recording myself right now because I've come to a place where I am willing to be open-hearted no matter what, and I'm not going to let some asshole narcissistic culture make me close my heart and make me close my mind because I might be abused or hurt or injured or judged somehow. I'm just not doing that anymore. So I am using this amazing magic box in front of me to record my voice and share my honest perception and my honest experience and my honest heart, just as a person, as a dude sitting in my bedroom, and my daughters are out there watching the boob tube before they go to bed. To be fair, they haven't gotten to watch it much at all lately. And I should be vacuuming, but I felt this in my heart because I saw my artist friend, who I care for, who has a profoundly open heart, doing her own version of what I'm doing, just living out loud, being willing to hit the record button and be truly open-hearted in a way that says, look, here I am. This is actually me as I am in the present moment. I'm not going to mask the fact that I'm feeling great pain. I'm not going to mask the fact that I feel betrayed. I'm not going to mask the fact that I feel all the stuff that I feel, and I don't know what the fuck to do about it. That's an artist to me. Whether it's music, whether it's painting, whether it's writing, whether it's acting, whether it's just speaking, artistry to me is just being open and honest and authentic and real, and in its most pure form, in the way I want to convey it, is just being as honest as I can be without a lot of fluff attached to it, honestly. So I think the thought I left out that I want to circle back to is that there are really big narcissists. There are really big and powerful narcissists. And we absolutely need to learn as a nation of people how to identify this kind of behavior. It's so obvious. It's right in front of us all the time. People in positions of power making choices, creating policies that have nothing to do with your freedom, with your children, with your well-being, with your health care, with protecting our well-being. It's just about creating a system of power, a system of rules, a system of laws, a system of economics that we are required to feed off of, when we are incentivized to feed off of. And if we don't feed off of it, it's profoundly punishing. We encourage people to go into sadistic competition with one another, and as if it's normal to do that and okay to do that. So it's just business, we say. It's just business. Well, it's a euphemism for saying in the realm of business, and apparently in love and marriage, in love and war, it's okay. It's just business. Just business. I don't need to care about if I drop a bomb, if it's going to hurt or harm people. It's just business. I don't need to care if the policy I make might hurt or harm people. It's just business. I don't care if my business tactics totally undermine your freedom or your business or your life. It's just business. I don't care how my behavior affects your life. It's just business. We've normalized and euphemized this idea of it's just business, which is really just a nice way to say it's okay to fuck with your life as long as it's just business. That happens on a large scale by super intelligent people who seek power, who have utterly no value in your well-being. That is how I define this. No value in how their behavior affects you or the people around you or the culture you live in or the planet you live on. It's very simple. And then they go about trying to convince everyone. So they exist on a large, catastrophic, powerful scale. And then they go about trying to find their tribe, to find their camp, to find their side, to find their political party. And they will change political parties however they need to. They will change religions however they need to. They will change philosophies and ideas in sentence after sentence and thought after thought, as long as they can play on they can be a predator, and they can play upon your injury, your generational trauma, your pain, your sadness, your fear, and they can prey upon you, and they can use it to push their agenda, their policies. As long as you would all think this way and blame this side, everything would be okay. As long as you all blame this side, everything will be okay. Whatever. We shame and blame, and we separate and divide, and we allow ourselves to be put into that position because we're acting out our generational trauma, and we're allowing the sadistic narcissists and the abusers of our time to take power, and we cede control to them. That also happens on a smaller scale. It happens on a smaller scale. It happened to my friend, I believe. I believe that it happens to anybody who tends to be empathic, who tends to act from a place of love, who tends to want to build bridges and collaborate, someone who has a healthy sense of femininity and a healthy sense of masculinity. Sometimes people will prey upon that. And those are like your small-time narcissists that we all experience. We have them in our families, we have them in our churches, we have them in our schools, we have them in our neighborhood. And sometimes we've been in very close relationships with them. And they have made choices that have hurt and harmed you, and that have hurt and harmed your children, have hurt and harmed your community. And we just sit back and we watch each other. Just to be really raw and personal in my experience, going through divorce in the way that I went through it was the most isolating experience of my adult life. Part of that to take ownership is me going into my own space, what people would call a catabasis, like the Greeks call a catabasis, like going into this space of grief and healing and needing to be still and quiet and to do the deep work of my life, to do the deep healing of my life so I don't fall into that shit anymore. And my simple share in the moment was that rather than an outpouring of tribe and community, which there was plenty, I'm not denying that, but there were many, 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 many people who just were like, sayonara, see you later. You're just angry. So interpret acting out pain and anger as something bad. You're toxic, you're bad, you're that kind of person, rather than, oh shit, you're in profound pain because every single one of your boundaries and everything that you hold near and dear is being used against you, and it's being undermined and it's being threatened, and all of your pain and all of your boundaries and every attempt you're making to protect yourself is actually being interpreted as some sort of toxic something. And so we're just going to isolate you, we're going to abandon you. You know, that's a personal experience for me. And by extension, I see people like my friend who get hurt and harmed, and so many people just don't have time for it, don't want to deal with it. I got my own shit to deal with, you know. We've just abandoned each other so much because we've just bought into this idea of just, I don't have time, and I got my own shit to deal with, and I don't have time for your shit. And you know what? You keep making mistakes anyway, so I don't have time for your shit. Rather than like, hey, let's value anybody who is empathic. Let's value anybody that is willing to grow, who is willing to learn, who is willing to look in the mirror and take a deep, hard look within their deepest self and be willing to open the body up, to relax the body, to allow whatever pain, whatever truth needs to come to the surface so we can come to terms with it and grow as individuals and together. I want to value that. And I want to set and I want to do that. I want to say, hey man, I see you're trying. I see you have love. I see you have empathy. Even though you've made mistakes, you're trying, you're willing to try. And I see that that's backed up in your actions. You're not just manipulating with words. You're not just manipulating with actions, but you are having a great alignment between your words, your actions, your values, your deepest sense of intention. And so I'm going to build trust with you, and I'm going to have value in you. And I got your fucking back, and I'm going to fight for you, and I'm going to protect you, and I'm going to be a warrior for you. Me, I do not care about political sides, racial sides, ethnic sides, gender sides. I do not care about any language that is intended to separate and divide me from my empathic, loving, deep-hearted brothers and sisters in the world. We got to stop that shit. So I'm looking at you from a place of love, from a place of strength, from a place of holding space with you. And I encourage you to grow through it. And I encourage us all to grow through it. Those who are willing to change, when you start setting healthy, strong boundaries as a culture of people, as a family of people, as an individual, you will very quickly identify the difference between a true narcissist, a true psychopath, a true megalomaniac, and just regular hurt people that are willing to grow and change. And I believe the majority of people on this beautiful planet have actually been deeply hurt and deeply harmed and are redeemable. And if you learn to set really clear boundaries with them, many of them will learn how to face their shit, how to take responsibility, how to crack that ridiculous ego, how to start opening up and taking feedback of others, how to start recognizing how their pain affects others, how to start making amends with others, how to acknowledge how their behavior has affected others once and for all. My heart is feeling that. Wow. I think that's what we call forgiveness. That's what we call surrender. That's what we call Christ within. That's what we call love within. That is what we call salvation. And I don't mean to layer ideas or stories or even labels on top of it, because in its most pure form to me, yep. Hi. Are you done? Come in here. Of course you can. Oh, kitties and doggies. Okay. I love interruptions like the wonderful one I just had for my daughter being so cute. So it puts me into a more simple thought. And this really is all the wise words out there that we've ever been told. And I know there are many mediums for telling these words. And I know many people that I know want me to say it through a Christian lens. And I'm not afraid of saying it through that lens. Friends and neighbors, I am so in this place of being mindful of using language that separates and divides, saying, I know the truth, my truth is right, your truth is wrong. If you would only think how I think, everything would be okay. There's inherent narcissism in that. There's inherent fascism in that. There's inherent authoritarianism in that. It's the seeds of it. I'm right, you're wrong, or else. So rather than imposing ideas and imposing philosophy, imposing religion, imposing a perspective upon you for how to frame this. Yep. Yeah, baby. Yeah. Are you getting something? Okay. Come here, Scarlett. Come here. What are you guys playing, Alice? Oh, are you getting a hair thing? Okay.
Wait, what?
You're getting a hair thing? A hair tie? There's a whole bunch right in front of you. Look right in front of you. Yes, that's the one. Okay. Hey, will you take Scarlett just for a moment? I'll be out there in a sec. And I'm not going to change that for anything, because that is just the reality of this moment. That's why I fight. That's why I'm trying so hard to grow. And you know what? To just cut to the chase, forget all the extra fluff. My journey has been, okay, how can I take absolute full responsibility for how my body and how my mind and how my heart have learned to react to navigate, to think about, to feel in this time and space in the course of my life? How has my body been calibrated by my life experience? What are the stories I'm telling? What am I holding on to? What kind of trauma am I acting out? What kind of shit am I acting out that is actually hurting and harming people around me? Or that is hurting and harming myself? Or I'm putting myself in a position where I'm a loving, empathic person who is constantly choosing to be in relationships with people who take advantage of that, or who don't choose to think that much about how their behavior affects others. That's a simple way to say it. I have allowed myself to lack healthy boundaries at times, to lack healthy love for myself, to lack healthy self-esteem, to allow myself to be taken advantage of, to allow myself to be diminished, to allow myself to be mistreated somehow. So turning my injury and my story of injury and all that shit into how can I take full responsibility for this and grow through it. And the thought I was having earlier is, to me, that is the essence of Christian doctrine. For example, we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God or of God, and Christ is the Redeemer. And if we invite Christ into our heart, if we surrender to Christ, if we allow Christ consciousness, Christ's love to become us, then we are saved. What does that mean? It means you surrender yourself, you surrender your identity, you surrender your narcissistic ego that thinks you're right about everything, and you actually allow yourself to become at one with God. You allow the divine to become you. That's the story, that's the teaching, that's what it is. You allow God to become you because you surrender to Christ within, and God becomes you. You are one, you are at one. You always were. You became separated. That's really the Old Testament of the Bible, how we became separated from God and we went our own way, and we dedicated ourselves to self-righteousness. And the only way back to God was Christ. And the simpler version of that is, man, I got a lot of stuff I got to take responsibility for. I have been telling a story in my life about the injuries and about who I am and about how I fit and about what I am and all that stuff. And I've allowed myself to make some poor choices. I've made choices that have hurt other people, and I have gone into agreement with other people who have hurt me or people I love. And I need to absolutely, totally, and completely surrender my pain, my grief, my sadness, my shame, my fatigue, my anger, my attachments. I need to surrender all of it. I need to die to it, and I need to be resurrected. I need to come out of the ashes, and I need to be pure and clean and godly and divine and powerful and in love and radiating. Everyone has opportunities that are put in front of them that will crush them. And when we respond to being crushed by radically surrendering and letting go and allowing our ego to die and arising out of the ashes, being redeemed, experiencing salvation, then we start creating from a place of love. We start creating heaven on earth. We come together in love. We come together in Christ's love. We come together in peace. We come together in God. We come together in oneness. We come together in spirit. You can attach whatever language you want to it. The essence of it for me is radically surrendering all the shit that I'm carrying into the present moment and doing my very best to speak from a place of love, to radiate from a place of love, to radiate from a place of forgiveness, to radiate from a place of strength. And I'm working on it every day, man. I make mistakes every day. I made mistakes today. I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. That never made more sense than right now. So, man, I hope that this resonates with you. I hope this hits your heart. I hope that I'm sharing in a way that is honest and open and genuine and worthy of your attention. And I hope you grow through it. I hope you grow through it. I hope you learn to sit and observe your mind and your body, and to observe the sensations within yourself as they are, without judgment, without a story, without a manipulation, without an injury. To look at the sensations within, to allow them to be fully expressed, to be fully acknowledged, to be released, and to start growing in a way that expands your healthy, strong yang energy and your healthy, strong yin energy, your beautiful, radiant masculine and feminine energy balanced within you. And that will change your life, that would change your home, that will change your community, that will change our nation. I don't think it's grandiose to say that. It's simple to say that. It's grandiose to deny it. I think I've talked myself out. I think I shared what I wanted to share. It's from the heart. It started with an intention of sharing to a friend from afar. And all I can say is I'm here to hold space with you and to be honest, and I'm doing my best. And I hope you do your best, and I hope you grow through it, and I hope you radiate